What's up? What's up? I want to make a video about the U.S. Census and whether or not they're important, or why should you or should you not participate in it. And I want to tell a story about my experience with the census. I think it impacted my life and helped me figure some things out about me and what I'm made of that changed my life. So one day, it was early in the morning, man, and I was in the bathroom. It was one of the mornings where my whole family was still asleep. So I was just up in the bathroom, man, and just having me some more solidarity time before the day started. And I was on Facebook, and I saw this Ancestry.com ad or something pop up, and it was an ad that was talking about the census. So I never really understood, any in depth what the census was. So that's what intrigued me. Like, let me look into this, and you could type in a name, and at the time it was like 1933. So I started typing in my grandparents' name, and under each grandparent it would show the whole household that was staying there, and at the time all my grandparents was children, so it would show their mom and daddy, it would show all their siblings that lived in the house. And for me, it was just like a historical moment, like, darn, I think my grandma Mary, she was like 6 or something in that time, all of them was their age, and I'm just looking at the family, I'm looking at the siblings, and then I'm just placing how I've heard about these brothers and sisters their whole life, and I'm using my imagination to go back in time and just be like, wow, during this time, grandma and my granddaddy was little kids. So I'm starting to see the significance of the census, like, darn, this is where you can trace your history. So, but before I get into that, I did trace my history. So I would use it to say, like, in 1933, I saw my grandparents' name and then their mom and dad, and then beside the grandmother's name, they would have their maiden names. So I would go back to a further census, like 1918 or something, and try to find my great grandparents and their census, and I think I went all the way back into the 1830s, where I found my grandparents and their parents living. So it took me on a history type of journey to kind of find myself. But back to this one particular thing with it, on my daddy's mama's side, I went back to hers, and I saw she had all her siblings, and I had remember hearing the names of her siblings, which would be all my daddy uncles, my whole life with him telling stories growing up, Uncle Hoob, Uncle Willie, Uncle Lee, and I saw one in there, Uncle Frank. So I'm like, I ain't never heard my daddy say nothing about Uncle Frank, but at the time, I think my grandmama was 9. She had a younger sister, which would be her sister we call Aunt Ada Mae, and then Frank was the baby. But so I ain't never heard no story about Frank, and I'm like, darn, I ain't never heard Frank. So I hang up and I call my daddy. I say, Dad, I'm over here looking at this thing, man, where I'm tracing my history. I said, I ain't never heard you say nothing about your Uncle Frank, man. Tell me something about Uncle Frank. And he was like, I ain't had no Uncle Frank. I said, yeah, you did. And he blanked on me. How the hell you gonna tell me, goddamn, what the fuck uncles I had? I ain't had no Uncle Frank. So this one of them things, well, okay, man, all right. So, but at the same time, it's drawing flags to me. And it's like, I see Uncle Frank now, 1933. Uncle Frank was goddamn, looked like he was about 5 or something. I can't remember exactly, but he was a little boy, the baby of the family. So it's drawing flags on me like, my daddy, I don't know nothing about Frank. So I called my grandmama. No, I think my daddy called my grandmama on 3-way. Hold on. He said, hold on. So we called my grandmama. He just said, Mama, Trav on the phone telling me I got an uncle named Frank. I ain't got no damn uncle named Frank. You ain't never told me I had no uncle named Frank. So the first thing she said was, who told you that? Then I had to try to explain to her who told me this. But I'm on the phone with now two people that can't really understand the logic of information, man, and how you can find information through internet sources in a sense. So, it's like, my daddy in the middle of like, I did have one, mama. She was like, yeah, he died. And she kind of like, well, let me call y'all back. She didn't want to talk about it no more. So now my daddy on the phone, me and him, I'm like, I told you. He like, well, she ain't never told me no shit like that. So this planted a seed in my mind. I said, God damn it, I got to find what this is. And at the time, I had watched that movie Coco. It's a kids movie. It's some deep shit too, man. But so just in that influence of that movie, I say Frank done made his way back into consciousness. I say I done brought Frank alive. Frank was a real person. Let me feel his spirit and figure out who he was, right? So I'm sitting in there, and as I'm sitting there, it done got real to me now. And I'm in there, doing my morning ritual, man, getting my mind right. So now I'm on go. So I called my cousin, which is my daddy's first cousin, Anita. I was like, Nita, your mom ever said something about a brother named Frank? She was like, yeah, she told me about him. He died. He buried down in Waysboro. And she started telling me about it. So I was like, well, why my grandma ain't never said nothing? And she was like, well, I don't know. I know she said something about they was at home together, but they don't really know why he died. So I'm chewing on this, and now, my logic kick in, my reason and my understanding kick in, and I'm looking at it. So I called my grandma back. I said, Grandma, my dad ain't on the phone. And she was just like, yeah, he died. I don't know how he died. I don't know what happened. And we're just talking about it. But as she's talking, I can feel the resentment about his death, right? So I said, this deep, man. This deep as hell. So as talking to her through reasoning and like you say, through logic and my understanding, being that at the time, she was the oldest child in the scenario. And being the fact they didn't know what happened. It could have been an illness, but like you say, back then in 1933, you ain't had the technology that we have now to understand causes and those type of things. He just died, right? So, but her being the oldest in the situation, I think they put somewhat the burden of his death on her, right? And so now this thing opening up like a chapter. It's opening up to me. I say, man, you got to dig in this, man. So now let me tell you something about my daddy and my grandmama and them. I call it like a dog type of love, but this helping me to understand it. It's kind of like that affected her in a way that because she lost somebody that she was overseeing in that situation, she got a dog type of love now that the only way she can protect herself from that again is to keep what she loved close to her, right? So this translates into, I'm going to give you an experience like with me. When I was on music hard, and I remember one time I say, man, I was telling my dad, I said, Dad, we finna go down to Atlanta, man, and make something happen. And it's this same old negative shit that we all can deal with in our own lives, right? He say, why you gonna go to Atlanta? Somebody gonna go down there and rob your motherfucking ass. And I'm like, why the hell would he be so negative, man? And that type of shit damn near destroyed a lot of me, man, just dealing with that negative shit. So, and the way the understanding works is, you gotta understand what you're made of to examine what it is, you know what I mean? And this was giving me that insight on that. So I'm realizing this is a product of that. The same way she would do that to her kids. You know, I'm getting ready to go out here, mama, and smack your ass with a lion cub. Say, no, you ain't going nowhere. And the child don't understand that that's out of a fear loving mechanism. We may just look at it like, man, they negative. They always knocking my dreams. They're always knocking my dreams. And I know there's some real shit I'm talking, so all my first cousins can relate to this type of thing. And a lot of people can relate to this type of thing, but it's showing me more so about cause and effect. And it helped me solve one of the things in my life dealing with my daddy and realizing what he dealt with, and it's helping me get to the root of it. So when I understood this, it gave me an empathy and a compassion for why my grandmama may be the way she is and the way she thought. And it gave me the empathy, the compassion to say that, wow, man, imagine the burden of a child carrying that their whole life. You know what I mean? And so when I took that back to her and we got to talking, man, and opened up with her through sincerity, and I let her know, you know, it was all right, Grandma, we can talk about it. And she opened up to me, man, and I almost like took me back there, man. And, you know, I'll never forget that day, you know, but that's another conversation. But I never forget that day. And, you know, I felt like, man, I solved a big piece of what I'm made of. You see what I'm saying, man? And why that same type of fear, that same type of fearful love, that same type of a dark love was kind of passed down in me and bred it in me. And because I was able to understand what causes this, I just think that I can break the cycle of that, man. But even in breaking the cycle of that, my fears and my experiences still create the kind of gutters of my reasoning. You know what I mean? So as much as I can understand how it affected my grandmama, my daddy, all my brothers and sisters, all my cousins, all that, I feel like, man, this is a powerful thing that I can now kind of change that. But the point of this, man, as powerful as that lesson was to me, it all started with the census, man. And I think it's important that we fill out these census to kind of put a time stamp of who we are and who we are and together, in a sense, man, with your home, at your home, and kind of like give people a stamp in reference of they did exist and they did dwell, you know what I mean? And to show that they still had ties and unity to family. I hope you get the point. I love you.